Hello, my friends. So in this episode of Wicca 2.0, we're going to take a break from analyzing and comparing different books on Wicca, and we're going to talk about gender identity and gender balance within Wicca. So, gender balance in Wicca is very important for especially traditional Wicca and group practice. And as it has evolved, especially when we get towards Cunningham and some other authors, we find that polarity becoming less important and the solitary filling both roles. However, in traditional Wicca, one could not practice without a priest, a high priest, and a high priestess, because that balance was needed. Now, this concept of having balance is not necessarily just gender. And when I'm talking about gender, I don't necessarily mean the physical representation of male and female gender. I am making a distinction of gender within a person, meaning even though someone may be physically male or physically female, they still can have the gender of masculine or feminine. So just keep that in mind, that that is what I'm talking about in this respect. Now, for the most part, and I think I really need to emphasize this, especially during this episode of Wicca 2.0, is that this is completely my own opinion. There are probably many Wiccans who would completely disagree with my position, and that's fine, because this is essentially going against Wicca's philosophy and Wicca's idea of gender polarity, sexual polarity. So with that said, if we look at Wicca, we see polarity. We see polarity in the tools. For example, the athame could be considered male, the chalice could be considered female. We have the elements. The elements of air and fire are considered to be masculine. The elements of water and earth are considered to be female. We can also see this as the tools of Wicca. Incense burner, the incense itself, the salt, the water. We could also say that earth and fire are male, water and air are female. So we can see polarity in Wicca. We can see the need for a high priest and a high priestess. When you come to the solitary practice, essentially the solitary priest or priestess is fulfilling both of those roles. It may not be in the exact same structure as a traditional Wiccan ritual circle, but the similarities are still there, and when the ritual is taking place, the solitary is taking on both of these roles, maybe not directly or consciously, but indirectly and subconsciously. So this brings up the question of, can, for example, a physical male channel and represent a female gender energy, and vice versa? And again, my opinion would be yes, they can. We can see this in the High Priestess card. The High Priestess sits between two pillars from Solomon's temple. Boaz, representing negation and strength, and Jacinth, representing beginning or establishment. Now, one of the original names for the priestess, the high priestess card, was, in the Marseilles deck, La Papessa, or the female pope. So this was the idea of gender balance, or one's gender being able to be another gender. And this was not necessarily gender as much as it was polarity, gender within us. So I want to be sure to make the distinction here between the physical sex of a person and the gender polarity of a person. So, for example, let's look at the charge of the goddess. There are beauty and strength. There is power and compassion. There is honor and humility, mirth and reverence. So there is this concept of extremes, one end to the other, and finding that balance. There is also the occult axiom of know thyself, knowing one's entire being, knowing one's self, being able to see power and compassion, honor and humility, and finding balance between these is vitally important, and it is part of the ethics and philosophy of occult and Wicca practice, at least in my opinion. Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk about is the divine masculine. So I'm not going to talk about divine feminine for right now, because I feel it has been talked about. I think that it is understood. But I feel that the divine masculine energy has been suppressed. It has been kind of locked away. It has been jailed, in a sense. And I feel that it is that need for polarity of the individual and of the superconscious of a culture and a society needs to come out, and it will bleed out if it must. And I think it does bleed out in the very strong-willed female characters that we have on TV today, for example. So let's go over some of the typical masculine stereotypes and how they can relate to us today. So we have the wizard scholar figure. This concept, or this common misconception that men are not in touch with their emotions or men don't show emotions is, well, false. It is not true. Men do not show emotion immediately, or their emotions are processed differently. Now, there is a very good reason for this. During negotiations, during war, during social events, one would not want to show emotion. One would want to remain in control, keep the appearance of being calm and in control of the emotions, and when it is necessary and when there is time and it is safe, the emotion can come out. So this is very important to understand, and one can see how it can affect negotiations, social events, and definitely times of war. The other aspect is the king, or the ruler. So the king ruler is also the father figure. They are the ones who create social order, create social structure. They are the ones who can delegate, they can give power, they can also take power and relegate someone. They are also the ones who will have the final word. They are the ones who will, if necessary, take a harsh responsibility. Meaning, if it is for the greater good to have something happen or take effect, they will take on that responsibility, even though later on down the line they may be criticized for it. It is a necessary sacrifice for the greater good. These are uncomfortable decisions that are difficult to make, and that is what the king and the ruler and the father must do. It is for the greater good. Another aspect of the divine masculine is the warrior. So the warrior aspect is the one who betters themselves, betters society, improves, always striving for something greater. We should shy away from breaking it down to this Darwinian idea of a battlefield and the superior is always the victor. That's not what the warrior represents. The warrior also can represent competition. Out in the natural world, when two stags fight, they do not fight to harm or to kill each other. They are simply fighting for dominance, for understanding who will be in what part of the social structure. It is the same thing with gladiator games. Back in the day, in gladiator games, very few of them actually ended in the death of one of the other members. Usually it was to the point where one submitted, one surrendered, and they were defeated, but they were left to live to fight again. Same thing with jousting matches. Very few jousting matches were actually intended to kill the other opponent. It was actually a competition. Sports are another good example of it. Sports teams are not trying to kill each other. They are simply trying to show who is the better team. So this divine masculine aspects can be found within the self. Now, I am not saying that women are incapable of achieving greatness. That is not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that these are the divine masculine aspects. So this was a tough one to talk about because I had several things that I wanted to address in this particular video. I hope I conveyed it in a understandable fashion. If you have any questions, if you have any comments on this video, please comment below. Thank you so much, and blessed be.
Thank you for watching my video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you'd like to stalk me on social media, you can find me on Facebook and on Twitter. If you'd like to support my madness, become a Patreon supporter. All of my Patreons have access to my videos 3 days before I release them on YouTube, and you can watch them completely ad-free. This has been Liloken, dispelling the bullshit one video at a time. Thank you, and blessed be.